现在将录制本次会议。
好，现在是美东时间8点半，我们的讲座正式开始。大家好，非常感谢大家来参加由 Meanwhile Consulting 和 Huli 联合举办的秋招及面试讲座。Meanwhile Consulting 呢是总部位于纽约的求职辅导咨询公司，我们提升你的价值，请用它来回报未来的自己。那么 Huli 租房，您来纽约寻梦，我们为您寻家。纽约租房，请找 Huli。今天呢，我们请来了 Amazon 的 HR Nella 导师，他将用英文做。根据导师的经历，我们来听他分享一些关于秋招的一些必不可少的知识，还有面试的技巧、经验分享。这次讲座其实内容量比较大，所以说大家如果有不懂的，请及时在文字消息下面去提出，导师会回答大家的问题在最后。如果时间没有来得及的话，我们会总结所有大家的问题。然后呢，在课后与大家及时的分享。好，I'm going to transfer the screen to our mentor Nella, and we will start our lecture.
Okay, hello everyone, this is Nella. So we're going to start our presentation. Once we can load it, perfect.
Can anybody hear the sound?
Can you hear me?
如果大家
Anyone?
能听到声音，请打1；如果大家没有听到声音，请打2。
Can anyone hear me? Okay, yeah, so please let me know if you can hear me. I'm speaking right now. So can we start? Can you hear me just fine? Okay, so we're gonna start. I hope you can all hear me. If you cannot hear me, please just comment in the chat. So my name is Nella. I'm an HR generalist and a recruiter for Amazon. And today we're gonna discuss how to prepare for a career fair, and we're gonna discuss interview skills as well. So let's jump straight in. There's gonna be room for questions at the end of the presentation. There's going to be 10 minutes for you to ask questions, so please keep them coming if you feel like asking questions.
打断一下，大家都可以听到声音吗？因为我这边好像目前没有听到声音。
I'm not sure if you can hear me. Okay, so can you hear me now, everyone?
大家请把自己的所有的麦克风请先静音。不好意思，请稍等一下，这边可能出了一点问题。请大家稍等。请大家稍等1分钟，导师那边连线好像出了一点点问题。
Hello, can everyone hear me? Awesome. So if you can confirm you can hear me, perfect. So I see that you can hear me. So let's start. My name is Nella. I'm an HR generalist and a recruiter for Amazon, and I'm going to share my screen with you. So just give me 1 second. Perfect. Seems like you can finally hear me. That's great. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to prepare for a career fair and about your interview skills as well. And I'm going to share some tips with you regarding Amazon and how to get a job at Amazon or how to impress someone at the career fair that can later on get you an interview so that, you know, you can be successful in getting, getting a job at Amazon. Okay, perfect. So now everything should be fine. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So let's jump into it. Okay, and as I already mentioned, the last 10 minutes of this presentation, you can ask questions. If you have any questions during this presentation, please feel free to put it in the chat room, and then I'm going to answer it afterwards. So let's talk about a career fair. A career fair is a formal gathering of potential employers who want to meet prospective employees. So how to prepare for a career fair, and why should you attend a career fair? So the whole purpose of a career fair is for you to get a job or an internship. It's to check out potential career opportunities, what is called window shopping, learn more about companies, network with recruiters. Now, why is an internship so important? So from my experience, one of the most successful, or many of the most successful colleagues that I had, they actually started as interns. Internship is something that can really set you up for success, because during that internship, you are not just starting a job. It's not just a regular, we're going to train you for a week or two, and then we're just going to throw you in the water. An internship is a strategic process where they're preparing you for success, where they're preparing you how to succeed in that company, how to succeed in that role. So that's why internship, even if it's paid or unpaid, it always pays off in the long run, because you're not only working there, you're not only getting your foot in the door, you're also learning the most important factors from that company, the culture, the processes, the strategy, the principles of the company, and also the main nature of the company and what do they want you to do in your role. So internship is definitely not like getting a job. It is something that can really set you up for success when it comes to getting your future dream job. Why do employers attend? They seek out new employees and interns. They meet students in person and make contacts. They advertise and gain for their company. So a lot of the times the recruiters, when they're looking for candidates, they do not have the opportunity to see how they interact, how they can engage, which is a very important factor in any role, right? Even if you're an IT person, even if you're an analyst, there's always the human factor wherever employer wants to hire someone who is able to engage, who is able to interact, and who is able to communicate. In any role, communication is the key. So they want to make sure you're someone who is able to communicate, because that is really the key for success. And thanks to these career fairs, they're able to do it on a large scale. So that's why they attend, because they can meet a lot of candidates on the same day. They don't have to make individual appointments with those candidates. That would obviously take a lot of time to do on individual basis. So they can do it all at once during that career fair. So that's why it is such a huge deal for companies to have these career fairs. That way they can go through all of these candidates, and they can basically save a lot of time by just meeting everyone in that career fair. So they're there with the one goal, which is to find employees. So it's a place where you have a high chance of scoring at least an interview. Okay, so what should you do before the career fair? You should obviously prepare, because you're going to have a conversation where you might impress someone so much that they will invite you for an interview. So it's not just a place where you go to kind of look and see what is the situation, or hear and intake the information from the employers. It is a place where you go to present yourself, and you're there to speak to them and kind of sell yourself. So you definitely need to prepare before attending the career fair. And you should know your objectives. You should be prepared to speak to the employers and know what you're going to tell them. You should also know your skills and strengths. And you should think of examples to demonstrate those skills. So here are multiple questions that you can get prepared, the most important questions to start with before you go to a career fair. So you should be able, before you go there, you should be able to answer, what are you looking for at the job fair? So you should already have an objective in mind and know exactly which kind of role you're looking for. Now, obviously, the employer can provide you with more information as to what the particular job entails and what they're expecting of the successful candidate, and what all of the aspects of the job. However, you should already know what you're exactly looking for. That way you're presenting yourself to the employer, and you're essentially showing them that you already have a goal in mind, and you know what you're passionate about, which also means that it's something that you have already mastered and you already have, some type of education or experience in. You should also know, you should also have a story about yourself, kind of like your background story. What have you studied? What is your experience? Kind of like your resume in a nutshell. You should also know why you're interested in a company. So a lot of the companies, if you're interested in them, they wanna know that you did your research. And Amazon or any of the big data tech companies are no exception to that. So they wanna know that you are there because there's something that you can relate to when it comes to the company. There is a reason why you chose that particular company. Obviously, just like when you're looking for new friends, you're obviously looking for someone who has similar values as you. You're looking for someone who has similar personality, so that way you can match. So it's the same way with an employer, right? Amazon is looking for someone who shares their values, their leadership principles, and who is interested enough in the company to research. So definitely make sure you do your research when it comes to the company that you're applying for. And for example, when it comes to Amazon, a biggest thing about Amazon is we have these 14 leadership principles that basically define the company culture. Those 14 leadership principles, they're easily accessible. You can Google them. So again, it's called 14 leadership principles. Whenever you're invited for an interview from Amazon, they will send you a list of those leadership principles. So that way you will be prepared as long as you prepare. So if that's something, you're pursuing, definitely read through those leadership principles, as they basically define what the company is looking for when it comes to your skills and when it comes to your work ethics. And also you should have prepared what makes you a fit for this position. So try to really make sure how to pinpoint what sets you apart from everyone else. So try to find that one unique skill set that you have that would make you attractive for the employer. Obviously, whenever we're looking at variety of candidates at the career fair, the one that stands out, the one that has something to offer for that role that no one else has, or that has something to offer on top of everyone else, that's the one that the employer will usually select. So make sure you come up with something, that's really unique to yourself that you can bring to this role when it comes to, new ideas, or something that, let's say you're very creative, and also you have an example how to back it up. That is definitely something that will make you stand out, and it will make the employer memorize you. And that's probably one of the most important things, because since career fairs are full of candidates, you want to make sure you stand out. So you want to make sure there's something about you that's gonna show that you're not just another body, you're not just another number there, you're someone who's gonna significantly contribute because of your unique skill. And you might think that there's no unique skill that you have at the moment, but trust me, everyone does have a unique skill set. So definitely think about what could be yours. Okay, the pitch, your introduction. So your introduction must be short but impressive, and confident introduction designed to market yourself. It may be tailored to the company of interest. It may include some of the following: your name, your year in school and or when expected to graduate, what type of employment position you're looking for, your strongest skills, accomplishments, and or unique contributions you will bring, why this matters to the company of interest. So these are the main factors that you should definitely include. If there's any unique skill that you have, I would definitely highlight it with your strongest skills, as that will set you apart from all the other candidates, and the recruiters and the hiring managers will memorize you specifically for that unique skill set. And now another way you can prepare is based on your goals. So a good way to do this is to create a strategic list separating companies into lists. For example, A, the ones that you must see, B, the ones that you would like to see, and see the one that you can see if enough time. So, just by knowing, all of the companies that are going to be at the fair, make sure you first hit the most important ones, the A ones. That way, if there's not enough time, you know that you already visited all of the ones that really matter, all of the ones that you really want to be able to get an interview at. Now try to determine what are the skills you bring and what is the fit with each of the companies on your list. So again, we're going back to the, making sure that you have those skills, even if you have to write it down on a piece of paper and just memorize it before you go, make sure you already have that ready, because this is definitely something that the employers will ask you about, and they will also ask you about, why you chose that specific company, especially Amazon, and most likely they will ask you about those leadership principles. One of our vice presidents once said that the reason why and I thought it was a really good example, that's why I'm sharing that with you. And that's coming from, someone who's reporting straight to Jeff Bezos. So again, it's one of our vice presidents. He once said that whenever he was being approached by a recruiter from Amazon, he, went over those leadership principles, which is, for example, ownership, bias for action, delivering results, frugality, insisting on high standards, principles just like that. So whenever he read those principles and what they mean and how Amazon wants, their employees to be like, he realized that he was, just reading through them, and he realized, what, this is me. This is exactly my personality, all of those leadership principles. And that's why he chose Amazon. So that's a perfect example of what you can share with that company. Share with them that you did the research about the company, and based on what you found out, based on their culture, based on their values and what they believe in, and how a company should be run and how employees should act, you realize that this is you, this is what you can relate to, and this is how this is what fits your personality. Okay, you definitely need to have questions prepared to ask, since there's always, whenever there's any interaction with recruiters, first it starts with you introducing yourselves, then they may ask you some questions about yourself and why you want to work for that company, and then it's your time to ask questions. One of the biggest mistakes for that recruiters will tell you that candidates make is whenever there's room for questions and the candidates do not have any questions. That is one of the biggest red flags, because it shows, number one, lack of interest, it shows lack of research, and it shows lack of engagement. It only tells the recruiter that this person didn't really research enough to be able to have questions, because once you start researching information about a company, that will lead to questions. Once you start being engaged about a topic, that will lead to questions. So they want to know that you entertained the thought about the company and you came up with some questions. So it definitely shows interest, and it shows that you're already invested in that company. So questions that you should ask, as an example, what do you like best about working for that specific company? What skills do you find most marketable in your industry today? What advice do you have for me in regards to entering the industry? Can you describe a typical day? Can you describe your corporate culture? Okay, next one. Before the fair, how should you practice? Be sure to use a firm handshake, make eye contact with your introduction, and the pitch. Practice until it sounds natural to both to you and the other party. And also a great thing to do is, once you learn the recruiter's name or the hiring manager's name, make sure you use that name, because it shows interest, it shows that you can be engaging, it shows that you're personally interested in the company and in the person that you're talking to. So there's never a wrong time to use their name. Once you learn their name, please feel free to overuse their name in that conversation as much as you can, as it will show that you pay attention to details, you pay attention to the person you're talking to, And also you can ask them, some questions and learn about them and be engaging that way. They will see that you have also the aspect where you're able to engage and you're able to network. Okay, so what to do once you arrive at the career fair? Demonstrate familiarity with the organization. So again, this is hopefully after you do your research regarding the most important organizations, the 8 organizations that you chose. Enunciate clearly, use proper grammar, and speak loudly enough to be heard without shouting. Make eye contact and present a firm handshake. So a firm handshake definitely shows your confidence. So make sure you focus on that. I know in that moment you may not even, when you present it with someone and you're shaking their hand, you may not even think about it, but definitely try to remember that, your handshake shows your confidence in that moment. Don't chew any gum, use a cell phone, fidget, or anything like that. Even if you're, let's say, sitting at the table and you place your phone right next to your computer or their computer, it shows that you might be distracted. So make sure you give them your full attention by getting rid of all of these distractions as a cell phone or anything else. And of course, smile and be polite. Remember the recruiter's name, as we already mentioned. Okay, what else to do at the career fair? So first, listen first. Try not to just focus on what you're going to say. That's a very common mistake, right? And the recruiter can always tell when the candidate is not paying attention to what they're saying. Rather, they're already thinking about the next question they're going to ask, or they're already thinking about the next answer that they're going to give. So definitely try to focus on what a recruiter is telling you, because it's essential information that you can build on and that you can use in your answer or your next question. Show confidence in your voice, avoid using fillers, and remember you are in a loud, distracting room. Now, part 2, interview preparation. So in case you're invited for an interview, this is how you should prepare. So we're going to talk about typical interview structure, we're going to talk about behavioral interviews, and we're going to talk about interview preparation and practice. So typical behavioral interview, this is the breakdown. So first you start with the introduction with greetings. So you basically give them the breakdown of your background, of your education experience, where you're from, what is your professional experience, and all of that. That should take about 2 minutes. Afterwards, the employer will ask you questions, which should take about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, you come up with your own questions, and then there's a closing for 3 minutes. So let's talk about an introduction and greeting. First impression counts. Appearance is important. Remember good eye contact and firm handshake to show your confidence. When you're introducing yourself, you should make sure you're showing slow and clear pronunciation of your name. And first you make small talk. What I noticed is that a lot of professionals nowadays that apply for Amazon, the type of people that apply for these big data-driven tech companies, they're very straight to the business, which is a great thing, right? They just want to execute, they just want to get things done. It's a great skill to have. However, where they usually lack is the small talk and the engagement piece. So you want to make sure you're making, even though you're going to be talking to the recruiter for a brief moment, only during the recruitment process, it might be just a couple of interviews, make sure you build that personal relationship as much as you can in that scenario. So you want to make sure you start the conversation with a little bit about where you coming from. It can be anything from like you hear a different accent, right? You can ask the recruiter, like, where are they coming from? Because you're hearing a little bit of an accent. Or you can ask them about something that you notice when it comes to the whole career fair. So definitely try to make small talk, as it's gonna build that personal relationship. And that is also something that the recruiters are looking for. They want to make sure that you're someone who can engage and someone who is able to build that personal relationship. And then definitely practice. Now, employer questions. So employer will address items on your resume and ask about behavioral skills you have. They will not be personal. The reason they're not going to be personal is, like, for example, asking you like how many kids you have and all of that. It could be perceived as a discrimination. So a recruiter or employer should never ask you questions like how old are you, or do you have any kids, stuff like that. Because again, in the US, some of those factors are considered discriminatory. So they're not going to ask you personal questions. Okay, so let's talk about the behavior-based interviewing. The reason why behavior-based interviewing is so popular is because previous behavior predicts future behavior. So the whole reason why the recruiter or the hiring manager is asking you about your previous experience, how you dealt with certain situation in the past, is because it will show them how you're going to deal with situations in the future. So they're basically already, by asking those questions, they're trying to see how you're going to work. They're not trying to see what any potential scenarios. They're trying to see actual action that you took in the past, because that's going to show them how you're going to be working once you get hired. Recruiters ask for examples that demonstrate your level of skill with a behavior that is important to the firm. So a lot of those questions, they may have a different format. For example, when it comes to Amazon, there's so many questions that we have. We have what is called Amazon Interview Question Bank. So there's tons of questions that the hiring managers and the recruiters can choose from. And all of them are different. However, they're all same at the same time. So it's essentially one question being asked all over again in different format. So I repeat, all of those questions that we ask, it's the same question all over again. It's only in a different format. And essentially, it is, they're just asking you, tell me about a time when, there was a certain challenge or certain situation. How did you handle it and how did you improve? That's all they want to hear, right? So you just want to have, a couple of examples prepared that will show them, a situation that you were in. There's always a plot, right? So there was a certain challenge that you had to overcome. They want to see your thought process. They want to see how you dealt with the situation, how you decided to resolve the situation, what actions you took, and what was the actual result of the situation and how you improved the whole situation. So even if they ask you in different formats, as long as you have a couple of examples prepared, you can kind of form those examples to fit into the question that they're asking you. So again, they might be a little different. They might sound a little different. However, most of them, all of the behavior-based questions have one thing in goal, which is they want to hear about a situation that you fixed, how you fixed it, what was your thought process, and what was the result. That's all they want to hear. Okay, so how to ace behavioral interviews. Work on your stars. So before you go into an interview, you got to know what star means, because that's going to help you structure your answers. And whenever you're giving those answers, you got to form them in this format. You got to start with S, which is situation. Then you follow with task for T. Then you follow with action, and the end will be a result. So basically, you want to present them with what was the situation, where were you, what was the process, what was the barrier, all of the details of, what is the situation that you were presented with. Then they want to hear about the task that you were given. So what was, in your role, what is the expectation? What is, something that you would know or a normal employee would do. Now, the difference between task and action, when it comes to action, you want to show that you went above and beyond. You took an action that was above what you have been assigned, or what you would normally, or what another employee would do, or what an average employee would do. You want to show in that action, you want to show your thought process, how you came up with the idea, with with your actions, how you came up with your strategy, what metrics you used, what other factors you consulted, basically how you came up with your action. And action should be always different with the task, because what they're essentially looking for is someone that will always go above and beyond, someone that will be that will act different than most employees, and then they want to see the results. So you definitely always want to present with a positive result, or even if it's a negative result, there should be some positive aspect, because there's not every situation has a happy ending, and that's okay. The recruiters are aware of that. However, the trick in this STAR method is you want to make sure you show them there was something that, even if everything went wrong, there was something that you resolved, and something when positive, and you did something above and beyond the expectation of your job. That's the main thing they want to hear. So the STAR provides an outline for answers. Okay, so now we're going to do a STAR quiz. Review the question and answer provided. Sorry. What skill is the question addressing? Did it follow the STAR format? Could the answer be better, and how? So after you practice your examples, you need to do a quiz. So you're just gonna review, what you said. You may want to pinpoint the main points, the main factors, and summarize what is the moral of the story, what message were you trying to relay, to make sure it's clear. Because a lot of the times you have to realize that you're talking about your example to someone who was not in that situation. They don't know all of the details. They don't know all of the facts that you know. They might not know the field of your study that you're studying. So you want to make sure you give them enough information. That way they can put themselves in your shoes and they understand the situation. Now, what skill is the question addressing? So you want to ask yourself, what skill am I showing in my answer? What is the unique skill set that I could impress the employer with? You also want to ask yourself if you follow the STAR format, to make sure that you're ending with the resolution. And then you want to ask yourself, could the answer be better, and how? A very common question, a follow-up questions that the recruiters at Amazon ask is, after you share your example, they usually ask you, is there anything you would do better, or is there anything you would do different if now that you have all the facts, now that you know the situation, now that it already happened, is there anything you would do different, or what did you learn from this example? So whatever information you're presenting, already have these follow-up questions in your mind answered. That way you beat them to the point, and you know how to answer and show them that you actually thought about the things that you could have done better. So that will show the recruiter that one of the most important things, which is that you are coachable. And that is essentially what they're looking for. They're looking for someone who is able to grow, and who is able to learn and become a better employee, and get more expertise in whatever they're doing. Okay, effective STAR response. So we're just gonna give an example. So for example, a question, give an example of when you had to persuade others to your point of view. And your answer can be, and this is very brief, you would obviously develop on that and you would add more details, but your answer could be, I was part of the negotiating team for my department when we negotiated our last contract. let me tell you, the bargaining on this one was tough. No one wanted to give an inch, but in the end, we got them to agree to most of our demands. So what do you think? Is this a good example or not? Obviously, this is not enough, right? You're not giving them enough information. Your answer should take from 5 to 10 minutes. So this will definitely not cover 5 to 10 minutes. This will not give the recruiter the information they need. This is not following the STAR method. So this is exactly how you don't want it to look, because if your answer is this brief, this will leave the recruiter with a million of follow-up questions, and this is exactly what you don't want. You want to make sure you give the recruiter or the hiring manager as so many information that they do not need to ask you any follow-up questions. That does not mean it's necessarily a negative thing when they ask you follow-up questions, but they should definitely not be asking you for details of the story that you should have told them. So make sure you have enough details regarding the, that are structured in a STAR method. That way you beat them to the point and they do not have to ask you those follow-up questions. So what would be a better STAR method? So the situation was, I was part of the negotiating team for my department, and the supplier wanted a large increase of 8%. So anytime you can use metrics, please do, because a lot of these big data-driven tech companies, they love metrics. They thrive on numbers. They live by numbers. They want to hear numbers because that shows them that you're analytical, and that shows them that you are able to use data and metrics for your success and for, to analyze and plan and strategize. Now, your next step should be, what was your thought process, right? I'll listen carefully to the supplier's needs. I collected data to support my argument on why 8% was unreasonable. I presented analytical data to support our position for 4% versus 8% increase. I also worked with management to change some requirements so it would be less costly for the supplier. And the final agreement was only a 5% increase, saving us 500,000. I learned the importance of really listening to the supplier, collecting and analyzing relevant data, and getting management support on my plan. So this is a much better answer to the question, because here you're following the STAR method. You're talking about, so the main plot of your story should be really the action. So you start with the situation and task, but then, as you see, majority of your answer is the action that you took, your thought process, what led you to choose, this path, how did you come up with this idea? All of that should be part of your answer. And then obviously the result, as you can see, it's something very positive that you did, and that was something above and beyond of what you were expected to do. Okay, so do you think this is an effective STAR response? The question is, for example, give me an example of your ability to use analytical skills. Answer: I'm good at Excel and have created several spreadsheets to improve processes. So if you answer the recruiter with this answer, what do you think is going to tell them about you? The only thing it's going to tell them is that you're not industrious, you're not creative, you're not innovative, and you did not prepare for the interview. Now, a better way to handle this, now we can talk about, what would help us prepare better. You didn't describe the situation and task. Your actions are missing. Results are vague. Interviewer will likely ask follow-up questions. And again, this is exactly what you don't want. If the interviewer has to ask you questions, that means you did not do your job well, and they need to basically dig into those questions, and they need to do that job for you. They need to help you with your answer. That's all that means when they're asking follow-up questions. Now, usually, if there's at the end of your answer, if there's one or two questions, that's fine. However, if the interviewer is constantly asking you follow-up questions throughout your answer, that means that they're lacking something. So try to put yourself in the recruiter's shoes and try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who never heard your story before, was not in the situation, and try to figure, what questions would you have if someone was telling you the story. And, you can also practice with a friend or family member and they can ask you those questions. That way, you will know what will an outsider who was not in that situation ask, and you can prepare for those questions. Okay, now the section, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume. So that's usually how the interview starts. So it's another component that you should prepare before you go into the interview. So you should tie your story to their business needs. You should demonstrate 2 or 3 strengths related to position or why you chose the position and how you can contribute to a company. You should not include your personal, family information, politics, religion, all of that. Obviously, that is completely off limits at least in the United States. So it's something that you can discuss with colleagues once you're in the company. You can share personal information, but definitely it's not a good time to do that during your interview. That does not mean you should not try to conversate and have that small talk, because small talk can be done without including these off limits topics. Okay, so what are your strengths? Relate them to the job, give examples or where you have demonstrated them, and how were they developed. So one of the very common questions, even at Amazon, are based on your strengths and weaknesses. Or for example, they might ask you about a critical piece of feedback that you received regarding your strengths and weaknesses and how you developed. So the whole point of those questions is, obviously everyone has strengths, everyone has weaknesses, but the recruiter wants to see that, obviously they want to see your strengths, what you can contribute with. And if they ask you for weaknesses, they want to show that you're coachable and you know how to work with those weaknesses, and you are aware of your weaknesses as well. So now, what are your weaknesses? So that's definitely something that's gonna come up right after strengths. So first of all, admit that you have one. A common mistake that candidates do is that they just say they don't have weaknesses. Obviously, everyone has some, right? So it's perfectly fine to admit it. The main thing is that you need to show that you're aware of them, and you need to show what are the steps that you're taking to make it not a weakness, to make it a strength. So you want to identify what you're doing to improve or what you learned from this weakness, and you want to detail the results or time frame expected. So you may want to show them a plan or a strategy that you put in place in order to work on those weaknesses and in order to turn them into strengths. So you may want to show them, this is my plan, this is how I work on it, this is what I already overcame, this is the situation I put myself in order to overcome these challenges and these weaknesses, and this is how it's been improving. So all they want to see is that you're coachable, and even though you have weaknesses, because we all do, all they want to see is that you are able to learn from those weaknesses and you're able to work on them and turn them into strengths. So when it comes to Amazon, the main thing the recruiter is trying to find out during the interview is your upside growth potential. So they want to see that you are able to grow professionally and you're able to learn new things and transform, during your career, during your professional years, into someone better, into someone more experienced, into someone who has more expertise. Okay, so if you need more time, good question. Let me think about that a minute. So you're asking if, can you repeat that question, please? No one's ever asked me that one before. Silence is okay too. So whenever you're presented with a question that you necessarily did not prepare for, this is some of the openers that you can say, just it's okay to, ask them to repeat a question, or, just be silent for a second, or ask them, can I just take, 30 seconds to think about it? It's totally fine. And the recruiter understands that, maybe you just have multiple examples that you're thinking of, and you just want to make sure you choose the best one. Do not ask. So I believe most of you are not from the United States. You do not ever have to ask if they are internationals, because in the United States, in most big companies, just like Amazon, they cannot discriminate anyone based on their race, religion, origin, all of that. So they cannot discriminate someone just because they're not from the United States. So you don't even have to ask that, because that would be a discriminatory for them to not hire someone. And obviously you would put them in a questionable position by asking that question. So that's definitely something you do not need to worry about when you're having an interview. Your goal is to convince them you're the best candidate, so visa isn't an issue. So once there's a candidate that they really want, there is no such a thing as, if this person is international or not. If they want this candidate, they will make sure, they take care of all of the formalities. Assure them that for internship, first year, they have no obligation. Now, summaries, 3 Ps. So prepare your STAR questions. So again, STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. Prepare questions for interview, and practice the delivery. Okay, so we concluded. So are there any questions? If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat room, and I'll be more than happy to answer those. Now, before we jump into questions, one last thing to remember: whenever you're interviewing for any of the big data-driven tech companies, you need to, and whenever you're preparing those questions, you need to remember that they're really trying to determine, number one, if you have that upside growth potential. So in your answers, you want to show them that you are able to grow professionally, and you're able to learn from situations, and you're able to take away something from every situation that you're presented with. So a good way to end your example or your answer would be this is what this was the result, and then this is what I learned from that situation, and this is something that I'm taking with me from that situation, and I'm implementing in my next career move, or this is what I'm implementing in the new process that I started. So you definitely want to show them that you have the upside growth potential, which essentially means that your ability to grow, that if they hire you, you're not someone who will be content being in the same position for next 10 years, because these big data tech companies, they want someone who reflects their values, and their values are growth, learning, and being able to basically being able to make it to the next point and invent something new. So you want to make sure you show them that you reflect those values, and you are able to reflect them with your own examples, and with your previous behavior, which will determine your future behavior. So show them. The last part of your answer should be always, this is what I learned, and this is what I'm going to implement moving forward. Or for example, you can tell them that you came up with your personal development plan based on the situation, because it prompted you into creating something that will help you grow professionally. So the upside growth potential is number one that you want to remember, because that's something they're trying to assess when they're asking you those questions. Number two, whenever Amazon recruiter is doing an interview, they're trying to see if you are better. Whatever role they're hiring you for, they want to make sure that you're better than 50% of the employees currently in the role. So that's another thing they're assessing you at. So if you're able to show that you are better than 50% of the employees in that role already, then this is, this will definitely put you in a favorable position. Okay, are there any questions from anyone? No questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, I'm gonna hand it over to the mentor from Mean Value.
请问大家还有什么问题吗？如果大家还有任何问题，现在还有时间，我们可以把问题都在留言板上去提问。我看到一个问题 ，Chelsea 问的 ，What kind of small talks can we have with the recruiter? Nela, could you answer this question?
Yes, that is a great question. So, you said as a recruiter or as a candidate? Oh, you said as the recruiter. Okay, got it. So, that's a great question. So you can ask them, for example, as I already said, you can ask them where they from or how did they get there that morning. If they have what kind of candidates they had so far. That way, that will also help you assess, what is your position, what are your chances based on seeing how many candidates they're getting. You can also ask them based on the location where you are, you can ask them if it's like a new city, if it's it's usually whenever whenever you are at the career fair, the recruiters are also traveling and it's a new place for them, so you can talk about the location where you are. That's a perfect small talk topic, as you are most likely both in a new location that you are not familiar with, so you can ask for recommendations when it comes to where they're staying or what is the best place to go afterwards. So that's something that you can definitely discuss as part of small talk.
Thank you. And there's one more question before the Chelsea. It's from Qi Jun. I don't know if you see that.
Okay, I
don't
don't
know if
see
it's a girl or boy, but he asked, can we ask about the fire package? How to ask any specific package during the salary negotiate time?
specific package. Okay. So okay. Let me see. Okay, sorry, I already see it here. Perfect. So you do not have to ask specifically about a package. Usually the recruiter will cover that themselves. The only thing you usually need to cover is that what are your salary expectations. So do not be scared to share your salary expectations. However, when it comes to the package, the recruiter will usually cover it themselves. Can we ask about fire package? How to ask any specific package during the salary negotiate? Yeah, so again, the recruiter will usually, when it comes to the salary negotiate, the recruiter, they want to sell you the role, right? If they're interested in you, they're also you're selling yourself, but you got to think about the fact that the recruiter is selling the role as well. So they will, definitely talk about all of those perks. So it's usually not something you have to ask about. It's something that the recruiter will proactively tell you about. Perfect. I'm sorry, I didn't see all of those questions. If I want to apply for a job out of my state, how to negotiate salary? Should I request higher salary than my current salary, or should I request salary based on the local salary standards, which may be lower than my current salary? So it should never be lower than your current salary. You can let the recruiter, unless you're okay with that, right? Which most people would not be. Otherwise, why would they, be leaving the old place? Unless it's for a growth opportunity. However, a good thing you can do is research, what is the salary based on, based on cost of local labor. You can research, what is the average salary, and based on that, you can negotiate. So definitely have your facts straight, research, the average salary for that role. That way you know where you stand and how much you can negotiate. What can we do to impress the recruiters in the career fair? So I would say definitely have something that will make you stand out, because if the recruiters at the fair and they have multiple candidates, they might make notes. However, they might not remember everyone very well, since they're listening to their stories all day long usually. So if you have a story or some unique skill set about yourself that will make you stand out, definitely use that one. Okay, any more questions?
Thank you. Does anybody has any question? Now it's 9:30, so if anybody has question, you can ask me, or you can leave on the chat box or on the WeChat. We'll gather all the question and send it to Nela, and she will answer the question in other time. So thank you so much, Nela.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
感谢大家参加明白里和狐狸一起举办的讲座。如果大家还有任何问题，可以在 WeChat 里面去留言。然后呢，请大家把自己的邮箱留言在 WeChat 留言在微信里面，我们会给大家发送今天的录音。非常感谢大家的参加，希望大家过得今天晚上可以好好休息，然后明天我们再具体去说。对，大家可以把这个邮箱留言在那个微信里就可以。谢谢大家的参与，我在这边再稍微等一下，大家可以陆续来退出，然后好，我会在这里等一下，如果大家还有什么问题，也可以在这边留言。